Welcome to this mini course on Criterion 1.1.1 of the Rainforest Alliance Supply Chain Requirements. In this short course, we will explain what this criterion requires, how it is structured, and what is expected from audited organizations in practice. The goal is not to replace the standard or the official assurance documents. Instead, we aim to support a practical and consistent understanding between auditors and certificate holders so that audits can be performed efficiently and lead to credible certification outcomes. Let's get started with the full criterion.
Here you can see the complete text of Criterion 1.1.1. This criterion acts as the umbrella requirement for the entire supply chain management system.
This criterion is composed of four main elements. Now, let us proceed with the dissection of Criterion 1.1.1.
Let's start with the first section of the requirement. This main sentence contains the essence of the criterion.
This section states, there is a clearly documented and implemented management plan that addresses each applicable Rainforest Alliance supply chain requirement. This main sentence contains the essence of the criterion. It tells us that every certified organization must have a management plan. The plan must be clearly documented, which means written procedures, instructions, and controlled documents.
But just as important, it must be implemented. This means that the procedures are actually followed in daily operations.
The plan must also address all applicable requirements. What is applicable depends on the certification scope, activities, traceability level, and risk profile. In other words, the management plan should normally describe how the organization applies criteria, such as 1.1.2, 1.1.3, 1.2.1, 1.2.2, and so on.
What is expected from a management plan? From this perspective, a strong and credible management plan should normally include clearly identified and coded documents, written procedures and work instructions, defined internal controls, accurate and complete records, trained and competent staff, clear roles and responsibilities, and mechanisms for regular review and continuous improvement. These components together form an effective system that supports supply chain compliance.
Mature management systems. If the audited organization already has a solid and mature management system, all relevant activities may already be described in other internal documents. In such cases, it is not necessary to repeat all that information in the management plan. However, it is essential that those existing procedures and records be clearly referenced in the plan. This allows auditors to navigate the system easily and verify compliance efficiently.
How auditors use this criterion. Because Criterion 1.1.1 is the core of the supply chain assurance system, it is especially important during audits. Whenever a nonconformity is raised against any applicable requirement, auditors should check whether the issue is partly or totally caused by gaps in the management plan. This verification helps organizations strengthen their systems, implement corrective actions, and prevent the same problem from happening again.
Now let's see the next section of the requirement. A flowchart of the products originating from certified farms, identifying all processing steps and points where products or ingredients from non-certified sources may enter or where certified products may leave the system.
This section refers to a key element of the requirement, the product flowchart. The flowchart must clearly describe all activities and steps that the certified product goes through, from the moment it is received from certified farms until it leaves the organization.
This includes every relevant activity, such as reception, processing, transformation, mixing, storage, packaging, transport, resale, or any other operation performed by the organization. However, the flowchart should not be evaluated in isolation.
There must be consistency and coherence between the flowchart and other key management system documents, such as the management plan, standard operating procedures, work instructions, and internal control documents. Auditors should be able to see a clear alignment between the flowchart, the documented procedures describing each process, the defined roles and responsibilities of the positions involved, the records generated by those processes, and any internal controls used to monitor compliance.
In practice, this means that the activities shown in the flowchart should be reflected in written procedures. Those procedures should clearly assign responsibilities to specific roles or positions. Appropriate internal controls should be in place to ensure the processes are consistently followed, and there should be records demonstrating that the processes are actually implemented. The diagram must also clearly identify critical control points, such as where ingredients from non-certified sources could enter the process or where certified products could leave the system.
The objective of the flowchart is not only to show the sequence of steps, but to provide a complete and realistic representation of how certified products are managed in practice. For this reason, the flowchart is essential for transparency, for understanding real risks, and for evaluating the effectiveness of the internal control system during audits.
Now let's take a look at the third element of Criterion 1.1.1. Procedures and records for controlling the reception, processing, mixing, storing, packaging, delivery, transport, and resale of products from certified farms.
This section focuses on operational control. Certified organizations must have clear procedures and accurate records for all relevant stages of product handling. These controls ensure that certified volumes are consistent between physical flows, documentation, and platform data. Without such procedures, traceability and credibility cannot be maintained.
Now let's take a look at the fourth element of this criterion: responsibilities of the employees involved with the supply chain management plan.
The final section refers to the human component. Every employee involved in supply chain management must have clearly defined responsibilities. Staff must understand who controls reception, who updates platform data, who approves records, and who monitors risks. Clear accountability is essential for an effective management system.
At this point, it is important to explain how Criterion 1.1.1 is evaluated in practice during an audit and how both auditors and certificate holders can use this information. Understanding how this criterion is assessed is useful not only for auditors but also for certificate holders because it provides clear guidance on how to prepare, implement, and internally evaluate their management system. Let us start with the overall expectations. During an audit, it is expected that there is a documented management plan that addresses each applicable Rainforest Alliance supply chain requirement. This plan must clearly describe how the organization manages product integrity within the scope of certification.
The management plan is expected to outline employee responsibilities, be implemented in practice, and be reviewed and updated when necessary.
In addition, there should be documented procedures covering all processes relevant to the scope of the certificate and the integrity of the Rainforest Alliance claim, and these procedures must be effectively implemented. A key element of this evaluation is the product flowchart. The flowchart should be complete and identify all processing steps where certified and non-certified products or ingredients may enter or leave the system. It must also correspond to the actual product flow observed in practice.
Now let us look at how this is typically verified during an audit. First, through document review. Auditors will verify the availability of a management plan that clearly identifies all involved sites, actors, and processes. They will check whether the management plan has considered potential risks of mixing, as appropriate for each site within the certification scope.
Auditors will also review the availability of standard operating procedures, instructions, and manuals, and confirm that these documents have been provided to the responsible persons for implementation. Evidence related to allocation of resources, training plans, and training records, including dates, content, names, and signatures, will also be reviewed.
The existence of the product flowchart will be verified, and auditors will assess whether it includes every activity carried out on the product, up to the final location within the certification scope. This includes, for example, collection points, transport, processing units, warehouses, and other relevant steps. Auditors will also verify that procedures clearly outline controls for reception, processing, mixing, storage, packaging, delivery, transport, and resale in order to guarantee the integrity of certified products and claims.
To confirm accuracy, the product flowchart is typically cross-checked against a sample of records, such as collection records, transport documents, delivery notes, and purchase invoices. The second verification method is interviews. Auditors will interview the persons responsible for developing and implementing the management plan to assess their understanding of the requirements.
They will also interview people working at different stages of the operation to verify their knowledge of procedures, instructions, and records, and to confirm how product integrity is maintained in practice. In addition, auditors may interview workers at collection, storage, or processing sites to cross-check whether the activities they perform, the way they receive certified products, and the way products are transferred to the next step match what is shown in the product flowchart.
The third verification method is observation. During the on-site visit, auditors will observe the visual identification and segregation of certified products, the availability of records that demonstrate the complete product flow, whether actual processes align with the management plan and documented procedures, and the presence of procedures and instructions related to product integrity.
Auditors will also observe ongoing activities in the field and verify whether the product flowchart accurately reflects what is happening in practice. In summary, Criterion 1.1.1 is not evaluated based on documents alone. The evaluation focuses on the coherence between documents, people, processes, and records.
To conclude this mini-course on Criterion 1.1.1, we strongly recommend using a structured checklist when evaluating compliance. A checklist helps ensure that all key elements of the management system are reviewed in a consistent and practical way.
To conclude this section, we will now briefly review the key points of Criterion 1.1.1 in the form of a checklist. This checklist brings together the main elements covered in this mini-course, including the management plan, documented procedures, the product flowchart, records, roles and responsibilities, internal controls, and continuous improvement. The purpose of this review is to provide a practical reference that can be used both during audits and for internal evaluations by certificate holders.
A. Management Plan. There's a documented management plan that addresses all applicable Rainforest Alliance supply chain requirements. The management plan identifies all sites, actors, and processes within the certification scope. The management plan clearly defines roles and responsibilities of employees involved. The management plan is implemented in practice, not only documented. The management plan is reviewed and updated regularly as needed.
Documented procedures. Written procedures are in place for all processes applicable to the certificate scope. Procedures cover, where applicable,
reception, processing, mixing, storage, packaging, delivery, transport, resale. Procedures are available and communicated to responsible personnel. Procedures are consistent with the management plan.
Product flowchart. Product flowchart is available. The flowchart includes all activities from product origin to the final point within the certification scope. The flowchart identifies points where non-certified products or ingredients may enter the system, points where certified products may leave the system. The flowchart includes all relevant locations, collection points, transport, processing units, warehouses, etc. The flowchart corresponds to the actual product flow observed in practice.
Records and evidence. Accurate and complete records are available for the entire product flow. Records allow traceability throughout the system. Records are consistent with the engineering diagram, documented procedures, the management plan.
Staff, training, and responsibilities. Staff involved understand their roles and responsibilities. Evidence of training related to product integrity is available. Staff can explain how procedures are applied in practice.
Internal controls and continuous improvement. Internal controls are in place to prevent mixing or loss of product integrity. Potential risks are identified and managed. There are internal review mechanisms for the management system. Identified gaps or nonconformities lead to corrective actions and system improvement.
With this, we complete the overview of Criterion 1.1.1. On behalf of CERES GmbH, we would like to thank you for watching. We hope this course provides a clear and practical understanding of the requirement and supports its consistent application in your work.